Hey everybody, this is Seth from Team Draw Logic. I'm going to be giving y'all a grade 4 Magnolia deck profile for set 11. I really enjoy this deck. I've been seeing some pretty good results with it. It runs a pretty unique ride line, including the new promo grade 2 Friendship Fairy for the role of getting to grade 4 on your grade 3 turn and just continuing to push and having a 6 attack potential like draw 7 grade 3 turn, which is really good for the format we're in. So first off, we got our ride line. Starter doesn't matter. Ranker Chain is extremely good in this deck because most of the ways we're going to be getting Friendship Fairy out of the Soul or from Grave off pitching it off of a Soul Charge or Soul Blast is through some orders. I think we're running 6 in total. So we're going to be resolving this extremely often. Of course, grade 3 Magnolia. We have 4 grade 4, of course. We're also running the Surrogate Doll order, and to go along with that, we have Inlet Pulse, of course, a staple for this deck. The draw advantage is great. The 18k attacks are also amazing. Building Soul, very consistent unit. With the orders we're playing, you can just kind of loop these very well. Draw very consistently. To go along with that, we're running 3 Goildote. I think this card's pretty good. 4 is too much. 2 you don't see enough of because seeing 2 of these in drop is very useful with being able to put one in Soul, call one out of grade 4, put another in Soul, and have a 23 Vanguard with another one to use the next turn, as well as one of these in the back row for another draw and a 25k attack. It's a really good card. 4 is too many though. We're also running 3 Nosla. This helps facilitate some of the big numbers this deck has trouble hitting sometimes. The 1 Counterblast is a pretty fair cost for it. We're running a pretty low Counterblast deck with the exclusion of the Friendship Fairy. But it's more likely that you're going to be trying to draw cards and playing more cards like Inlet for a first like grade 3 push. So I think 3 is enough. 4 is way too many. We're not running the countercharge sheep in this build just because we don't really counterblast enough to justify playing it. Plus we're getting big numbers anyway, so I think 3 is enough. We're also running 2 Spring Maiden just to make sure we hit the Friendship Fairy more consistently. If we're going to have to pitch one of the orders off the ride line to keep the hand advantage, we're going to need another card to call it out. This card does it very well. It's good for grade 2 push, especially alongside this card, the Mushroom. I really like this card. It brings early game that Magnolia didn't have before. It's very synergistic with both this and the orders, so later in the game you can just start pushing, or even just these 2 creates a full field with putting it into Soul, calling 2 plant tokens, calling it out off of this, getting another 2 plant tokens. It's 5 bodies, and you can do it on turn 2. It's very, very efficient. You only need to run 2 of this because you're basically able to loop it with some other cards, and this gets really bricky if you run more than 2, I think. I think 3 may be fine, but I just don't have the space for 3 anymore. We're also running 1 Gabreg and 1 Alvin. These are just kind of flex spots. I've often run another Sloth or a Nosla and 1 sheep or 2 sheep or 1 other Spring Maiden. These are kind of my flex spots, but I really prefer these cards because awkward guarding in a 6 attack deck is very good, especially if it's later game and you're having trouble hitting numbers. 13 with 2 from hand can sometimes just force a damage. I've put crit on this off of a trigger enough to just like, it's really unfortunate to lose a game from this card. People that play against this deck consistently know this card's a problem. This card's also very good if you're playing against, a lot of decks have grade 1s or calling grade 1s for early push now, especially for like decks that go off on like turn 3, and being able to just dodge Sentinels with this card is amazing. I think any more than 1 of either of these is too many. You're filtering through your deck enough, you're gonna see 1 of these, and they're not even necessary to snag a win, but they're very useful tools that this deck has access to. Onto the orders, we have 3 Dim Darkness, and 2 Spiritual Body Condensation, as well as a Surrogate Doll. So Surrogate Doll, of course, is just another copy of Mag Grade 4, as well as just a way to get to Inlet faster. This card does a lot. I prefer it over running the Grade 1 Mag card that looks top 5 for a Magnolia, because missing off the card stinks. Plus, you kind of have to run a regular ride line for that card to be more consistent or useful. So this card's really good. It's also another order for the ride line to discard if you already have a Grade 4 and an Inlet or something. Now this is interesting. I really like running the Dim Darkness. I would play it at 4, but I've been playing with these too often, I think, now, where I'm using Inlet during the late game or even in Enosla. And the plus 5k that this gives makes the Inlet at 23, and it makes Enosla 20 that I can just move, which is insane. So I really like the plus 5. Doesn't seem like a lot with this card, but it does help out a decent amount. Plus, you're mostly using these to like loop a mushroom or get a Goildode out or just anything. These are mostly utility based. Deck thinning with this card is good, but sometimes the plus 5k is more impactful, so I'm playing a good mix of both. But you could run 4 and 1 Dim Darkness, because I know these cards are more expensive now, but again, doesn't really matter. I just like this ratio. Then of course we have 4 PGs running 4 crit, 4 front, 4 heal, 3 draw, and the Stoic K over trigger. So most of the triggers come down to personal preference. In this deck, since it's a triple drive deck, it's pretty common to have 8 crits, and I played like that for a while. I really liked it. I switched back and forth from running 8 crits and taking out the fronts, but lately, just for trying to get the early push, and I'm calling plant tokens on turn 1, and really trying to apply pressure thoroughly throughout the game, fronts just help to hit and make sure early game really lands. And I think the extra shield with the amount of draw that we're having, you're really relying on triggers for shield a lot, and you have to ditch sentinels for like pieces sometimes. So having consistent shield in hand, I think fronts are preferred for me. But really, again, it's personal preference, as well as running red over trigger if you're playing the sloth. Like if you wanted to play 4 Enosla and like sheep, I would play the red over trigger. I just think this helps a lot more. I find myself going to 5 damage a lot and having an extra copy of a heal that I can just like basically this card fully changes the game for me, and I appreciate it too much to go for a greedy extra 100 million attack. I mean, this card's already putting a crit in a front, giving your hand advantage back. It just does so much that I can't really think about cutting it. Anyway, that is the deck. I'll go ahead and cut and do a test hand for y'all for going first and going second. The mulligans are slightly different. It's a very technical and combo based deck, so the pieces you're going to want before you get to turn 3 vary depending on the die roll, so we'll cut to that. In our mulligan, we're going to prioritize getting the grade 4, as well as an order and some way to call out a Soul on grade 3 turn. So we're looking for like Spring Maidens, Beat Sticks, like Inlet, and Enosla. They aren't really that bad. But we're trying to ditch as many triggers and shield as possible because we're going to be needing some counterblasts anyway, so early guard doesn't really help. Alright, so we have an order. Alright. Not too terrible. In cases like this, if I don't end up seeing either another order or a way to call out of Soul, we're going to go ahead and probably ditch 2 on the discard and just save the order. So we'll go ahead and draw for turn. We'll get rid of the goat because we'll be able to put that back in Soul. So we ride, draw for starter. Unfortunate. Soul Blast to draw 2 more. Alright, so it does look like we're going to be discarding 2. We don't need another grade 4, and having 2 Goildode and discard is great. Plus we have some early game here with this. since we are going second. Let's play the mushroom, put in soul, call, double plant tokens, swing, try and push them to 1. They hit a potential trigger. They want to pass. Oh, we do hit it. So we've already pushed them to 2, or they guarded 1. We have a card of their hand. Likely, we're going to be wanting to go to 2 to 3 damage before our grade 3 turn, so we're not really going to guard, just going to take it. Let's say they call another rear, or they hit a crit, and we're at 2. It's unlikely that they get rid of a plant token, but if they do, it really isn't the end of the world. We already have the commitment of putting this in soul, so we'll be able to get plant tokens out later if we need to. So we'll go ahead and draw for turn. We don't need about this much shields. We'll be discarding the draw to ride. And we're still about the same in advantage here, because this is again going to be able to hit Vanguard. Maybe this as well. So we have a surrogate doll. Interesting. So there's some timing here that's going to be kind of precarious, because you can only start playing this on grade 3 turn, and you're going to be wanting to drop this order for the right skip on grade 3, which is kind of unfortunate, but the timing here can, depending on what else I draw, I could be able to dodge that, but that's just something to be aware of. So it's likely we're going to be taking probably 2 to 3, maybe something I need to PG that's big for 2 damage. Say that a plant token died, or both of them died. We're playing like Jeweled or something that retires 2 on grade 3. Draw for turn. Alright, so we're going to be discarding here since we need the grade 4 in hand. And we need this order to resolve. We're going to be discarding the surrogate doll to ride. Now, in drop, we have a goat. The next goat, it'll be for next turn. There's a really cool interaction in ride phase with these. So that'll go in soul, give Vanguard +5. It's not really going to matter. We just want something to call off at the grade 4. So we'll play Condensation to Soul Blast this, to call it out. Then we'll Counterblast to put this in soul and ride. Here, Vanguard, grade 4 effect, calling out the goat. So everything gets +5. We have any Nosla. Just to apply some more pressure here, I would likely call this just so that I have something to move Nosla power to. Hitting 4 attacks. Even if this is already a 10, so worst case scenario, I get rid of a rear guard. But normally I'll attack with Vanguard first, just for trigger freedom. Second check, crit. So obviously if you're playing Mag, put power on Nosla, then crit on something you want to put power to from Enosla's effect. Third, a draw, so we get to put power again on Nosla. We draw another card. All right, I'm glad we discarded the defensive, because we have quite a bit of defensive cards here now. This is a relatively normal mag field. It's kind of underwhelming. We saw more defense than we saw pieces, but that's not uncommon. We're still able to apply 4 attacks on a grade 3 turn, and they're going to be decent numbers, so not terrible. Then it'll be like a 25. This gets retired, and I draw a card. So we have an order again for next turn, because we're going to be able to put these goats in and out, or if I want to call more bodies, I have the mushroom still in soul. And again, this is going to pitch off the top of the deck, so I could hit something useful like an inlet or something. So then we'll go Nosla attack, Counterblast, put that 35 here, and now we're swinging for some significant damage here. 35 is a pretty great number, passing 33 for a grade 3 turn. And we have a 45 trigger, which is pretty great. Let's say they dodge it or not. It's likely we're going to be going to turn 5. As much pressure as this deck applies, it's pretty common for decks that draw a lot of cards early game nowadays to have enough shield to casually keep applying pressure and usually survive to around turn 5 or so. So it's likely we'll be taking a damage. Maybe these columns will get destroyed. We'll have to PG a few times. Say we lose all of our advantage, but this one order, just for the sake of testing. We draw. We have the same order. So this is an issue with running the amount of orders I do. If you run any less, it's unfortunate for the ranker chain and for the ride skipping, because seeing 2 really isn't terrible. But scenarios like these kind of stink. But let's see what we can get out of it. So we'll Soul Blast the Mushroom. And then we'll look at the top 3. Alright, so we have some interesting pieces here. I'd likely send an inlet. Situations like these are also very useful for the Mushroom. Just getting 2 bodies, that'll be 10k, potentially bigger with triggers. Just getting the number of swings is great. So now we'll call. So you could go a number of different ways. You could get a goat to get just an easy 25 body with the draw. It's going to be bigger than the inlet. You could get the mushroom for 2 smaller attacks. It really depends on what their field's looking like here. I haven't really decided what they're playing in this test hand per se. So for generic sake, let's say they're also struggling. We'll do that. So then we'll have our Vanguard swing. Front. So we get another defensive good card. Hand shaping up. Another one. Amazing. So maybe they cheated past our Vanguard. Critical, awesome. So we obviously put all effects here. So our hand size is shaping up again. This will be a 35 to the Vanguard with a crit. Then another draw. So not looking as oppressive, but again, I've been playing as my opponent is just obliterating me. And it's likely going to be less oppressive. So we're still have a recent increase in hand size. Still surviving. Have enough resources to where literally if we draw almost any body at this point, like again, this is getting me 3-4 cards of advantage or full field now that I have a mushroom. Inlet. More shield. Anyway, this deck plays for a really long time. So we'll go ahead and go into the going first. Alright, going first. Our mulligan's gonna look a little bit similar. We are going for another order. Just for the ride line. We're not going to be doing the ride skipping, so cards like this aren't going to be near as useful. So we're going for grade 4 orders, potential bodies to attack with. Again, we're retreating all of these back to deck. This would be potentially useful, but for the sake of grabbing a grade 4, I'll put 5 back, which is an uncommon. There we go, right off the top. All right, pretty great hand. We have some early defensive. We can afford to do that going first more because we're not requiring a counterblast off of our red line. We are for grade 3, but it's likely we're going to be at 1 damage at grade 3 turn either way. And if not, we're still doing 3 pretty solid attacks, and we have a potentially grade 4 amazing turn. Very low counterblast for going first though. So early shield isn't terrible. Again, we have an order, so this is a pretty good opening. I have our draw for turn. Here, I think, since we're prioritizing making a diverse field, I think we would discard the Alvin, just because we have 1 card that's going to be good from the back row for our grade 3 push anyway. So having a booster isn't really the best, and I'd prefer some early shield. So we ride. Effect. Draw 2 more. Okay, so we have some early shield. Discard the order. Pass. They say they swing. Guard. Potential second swinger. Take damage. Draw. Discard this. Ride. So now we have some options here. We could just go ahead for the... We could go ahead and push if we really needed to get rid of a rear guard. But normally I'd just go ahead and swing. Alright, we have a goat. That's going to be a good discard for next turn. And pass. Let's see if we take a damage. Guard. Guard again. Say they really insane early game. Drop. We're going to go discard this goat. For Magnolia, put the goat in soul. +5 to Magnolia. So we could go ahead and push here. which I think I will do, because even just these two really does a lot for us. So obviously 18 first with the Vanguard. Say they 1 to pass or 2 to pass. Front. There we go. Then we'll Vanguard's effect. 2 counterblast, +5 here, +10 here from the front. Then we'll swing with Unosla to counterblast to move 15 here, and then its own effect will Soul Blast. Actually, you know what? It might be a good idea to Soul Blast the Goat out. To give it another +25. Now it has Guard Restrict from whatever rear guards they had. It's likely they had a grade 1 if they were pushing, so pretty solid attacks. Say everything goes sideways. Just take a bunch of damage here. Something I have to PG or I lose. Take another attack. Go into grade 4. So even hands like these aren't terrible in this deck, because every card gives you at least one other card worth of advantage. I guess excepting the orders, because they really are just a trade-off 1 for 1. So we'll ride. Get a goat out. Call it. +5 to everything. Rose to counter. Soul Blast. Call a card, and then we'll get +5. So we can go ahead and get back maybe an Alvin. That would be nice for a good column. Or if we wanted to waste all our counterblast, we do the same thing for getting these 2 out. I think that's more realistically what I would do. That way we get to make a pretty solid board. And again, these are all 15, so they're hitting rears, Vanguard, and then we can just keep pushing from here. But basically, you get the idea. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe.